be done by Congressman Tong, who's very eager to ask his question.
Roy, we've had the same position on the South China Sea. But since I come from Bataan, Zambales area, my focus is Scarborough, not so much Spratlys and Paracels and so on. And lately, the fisher folks have been allowed, not inside the lagoon, but a few miles outside the rocks surrounding the lagoon. And I read an account by Alan Makati of the Philippine Daily Inquirer that made a visit there with some fishing folks. They would not see what is inside the lagoon because they're far out and there are rocks covering. And there's a Chinese, I think it's a white ship that's watching what they were doing. What is worrisome is the president said, and I thought he discovered a win-win solution by saying, let's make the inside of the lagoon no fishing zone by either the Filipinos or by the Chinese. What would it be? Some kind of a scientific study and so on. But if that happens, who will lose in that kind of situation? We would rely in good faith that no one will be there, but would China do the same, or do they have other plans that will be assisted by this statement of President Duterte?
Yes, that is actually a unilateral statement. He gave this intention to come out with some kind of an order declaring the lagoon inside Scarborough Shoal as a no fishing zone. But that is a unilateral statement, and judging from the reports, international reports, China is not commenting on this. In other words, China is not making any commitments as far as the unilateral decision or statement of President Duterte is concerned. And I can understand that because the moment they respond to that, if they acquiesce, they will be recognizing our control over Scarborough Shoal. On the other hand, if we ask for a joint statement, that will also be a no-no because that will also be recognizing their claim in Scarborough Shoal. That is Republic Act 9522. I think both of us were still in Congress at that time. I happen to be the chairman of the technical working group of the committee that drafted that, where we declared that Scarborough Shoal and KIG, Malayan Island Group, are part of our territory, not just part of our exclusive economic zone. That is the law as far as we are concerned. My other concern there is very similar to your concern. If we are to declare that as a no fishing zone, we must make sure that that is complied with. And how do we do that? That we should send our Philippine Coast Guard and also our Bureau of Fisheries patrol ships inside the lagoon. So that should accompany the issuance of an order from the President. If we do not send our ships there, how do we monitor compliance? Now, the Chinese Coast Guard is there. Are we going to be allowed? Will there be a confrontation? Now, going to a related matter, with respect to what Secretary Yasay said, that we're going to set aside the ruling of the arbitral tribunal in order to allow fishermen from Zambales and from Pangasinan to have free access to the waters, fishing area around the Scarborough Shoal. My question is this: if we set that aside, we are setting aside a claim of about 900,000 square kilometers of exclusive economic zone from the northern Luzon area, Batanes area, all the way to the Palawan area. In exchange for fishing in 150 square kilometers of sea. Or maybe let's make it a little bigger around the Scarborough Shoal. My question then is that a fair, equitable bargain? How many thousand tons of fish compared to 900,000 square kilometers of sea, seabed, subsoil, minerals, etc., etc. So, yun lang ang tanong. I think that is something that we must assess very carefully on whether the national interest is protected here. Thank you.
Mark.
What the panel of experts that the President is rather relying on?
Marami naman. However, my feeling is that in the crafting of foreign policy, some factors come in that may not be as germane as, let's say, geopolitical interest, economic interest. When you define foreign policy, as far as my concern, my 2 cents worth. Our foreign policy should be, especially on establishing alliances, either economic or security alliances, should be defined by common interests like economic interest, political interest, ideological interest, cultural interest, commonalities. I would find it very difficult, as an example, having, let's say, North Korea as a security ally, because we practically don't share anything with them. We can share a lot of things with South Korea, which is a democratic country. They can rally, they can have 500,000 people rallying against the president, which cannot happen in North Korea, which cannot happen in Beijing. It has happened here in the Philippines. These are what I call common values. Plus the surveys that I showed, as far as public sentiments are concerned. 4 million Philippine Americans in the United States, BNP, and those other factors. But I'm sure he has plenty of expert advice. I think Secretary Almonte is helping him. FDR, in spite of some differences, I understand, is continues to help our president. And so a lot of other people are helping by way of unsolicited advices. One of them from me, for example.
Last question, just because we have to close at 1:30, our reservations only till 1:30.
Okay, my question is, in a situation you have a big bully and a small kid fighting, walang laban yan. The kid must accept whatever the bully does. Now we're supposed to have a big brother. My question is, this big brother is supposed to have a mutual defense agreement with us. The problem is when the mischief reef and the Galeanas were taken over, wala nangyari. When Scarborough was being taken over the past years, what did the U.S. Navy do? Show their force in the south, did they stop it? So my question is, what is the effect and use of the mutual defense? If it is academic, particularly when I did the centennial presentations for the Philippines before, remember 100 years ago they were supposed to come to help us. They took over the Philippines. That's my question. Can I trust the American government?
Well, in the first place, the Mutual Defense Treaty does not cover the islands in the South China Sea. It does not cover Scarborough Shoal. It covers only our metropolitan territory, meaning our mainland, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. That is in the treaty. Plus, it also covers attacks on elements of our armed forces, public vessels, and public aircraft anywhere in the Pacific. And the South China Sea is part of the Pacific. So, I think China is aware of that. So when they took over Mississippi in 1995, then built permanent structures in 1999, they know that it is not an event that would trigger the invocation of a mutual defense treaty. When they surrounded Scarborough Shoal, they knew that it will not be considered an attack. The U.S. was not under any obligation under the mutual defense treaty. So they cannot expect in the same way, kasi two ways in it. You know, in the same way that if another power would take over some disputed area somewhere in the Pacific that is not part of the metropolitan territory of the U.S. cannot ask us to come to their to support them. It's similar to the coalition of the willing. By the way, the MDP is a two-way. Believe it or not. So, wala. But as far as threat is concerned, the threat continues. The MDP was signed in 1951. During that time, there was worry that the Chinese were going to take over Taiwan. They're already in the Indo-China area, Vietnam. And at that time, they were already knocking at the doors in the Caloocan area, the communist rebels. That was the threat during that time. Now, there's no more of that threat, but the bigger threat is, if you ask me, China, because they continue to claim our West Philippine Sea, 90% of our West Philippine. That is even bigger than the threat posed in 1951. There was no such threat in 1951. So, can we trust the U.S.? Probably the U.S. doesn't even know until now what they would do if there would be hostilities here. I'm sure they have some contingency plans, but President Obama now, and incoming President Trump, probably, including his think tank, probably does not know exactly how they would respond. Normally they don't. They only have a number of scenarios. Can we trust the U.S.? Can we trust China? That is the question. You know, in my presentation, I didn't take it out. I said, let us beware. Beware of the rocky sea of diplomacy. Because in diplomacy, words matter. Words are very important. Beware of the dragon, because the dragon is eyeing at something that we own. And we know that. Of course, the eagle may not be a perfect friend. The eagle may have disappointed us in many ways, but the eagle continues to be a friend nonetheless, more than the dragon.
Last question.
Okay, yeah. Roy, short last. In your opinion, what could be the reasons why President Duterte is favoring China vis-a-vis the U.S.?
No, by his statements, he's talking of his narrative is as follows: the U.S. mistreated us during the Philippine-American War. What happened in Bulo, for example. The U.S. has not been, this is a narrative from some of his advisors, the U.S. has not been helping us in accordance with the Mutual Defense Treaty. But again, I would like to say that the Mutual Defense Treaty does not obligate the U.S. to give us military equipment that's not part of the Mutual Defense Treaty. Well, they have the FMS, foreign military sales, foreign military financing, the education and training, amounting to maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, $300 million, but not enough. However, during the time when there were U.S. bases here, you know, in 1957, we were among the first to get the F-86 Sabre jets. The F-86 Sabre jets came into the picture only in 1948, 1949. So when they were given to us, they were practically brand new. You know, a 10-year-old fighter jet is considered brand new. An F-16 is more than 20 years old. The B-52 bomber is more than 50 years old. the Liaoning, the aircraft carrier of China,